Welcome to another episode of On the Line. I'm Joe Mullings here with the Miss Holly Scott.
Hello, Joe.
Good to
nice
have
to
you
be here.
back together again.
Back together. Here
Bonnie
we
and
are.
Clyde in studio. And boy, the studio's looking good. We've got a full studio. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras and five operators.
I haven't seen this many cameras since, BrandSmart or somewhere.
Oh, boy, was I going to go somewhere with that. But I'll just move right along.
Right along. What's the topic today, Mr.
Well,
M?
interestingly enough, your first 90 days on the job.
Ah, yes.
You're a pro at this one. Because you're fantastic at follow-up all the time with individuals. And
Yeah.
what guidance do you give them a lot of times in the first 90 days?
Well, I think the first 90 days we all have to realize are probationary on all sides, right? They're regardless of what your employment contract offer letters say, you are feeling them out, you are getting to know them, and they are getting to know you. Let's think about it. There's probably maybe 8 clock hours that you've spent together before all of a sudden you're married. So here we are, first 90 days, and you're figuring it out. Now, this is interesting because just in the last couple of weeks, I had an individual who reached out to me, and he was around 6 weeks in and having a real challenge in establishing a strong communication funnel with his current manager. And his concern was he was hired to do a job, and he was really afraid that if he went and asked too many questions, that he would be doubted in terms of competency. And he ended up running in the wrong direction a couple times. He took it on himself.
By not asking questions?
Right. He thought, okay, this is the way we should be going. Let me run with this, and bam, wrong direction. And it happened again. So the good news is we had a few conversations about it, and he did go to his manager and basically started with, look, we're obviously not effectively communicating here, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page, and I need a little more input until I'm certain on how you want to go, directionally speaking. And they set up calls every week for the subsequent 4 weeks, and that really helped get it on the rails.
Yeah, it comes down to communication. I mean, we just had that in our organization, right? Mm-hmm. Walter's here 90 days, whatever it is, and we have to communicate more as well. I mean, that's just normal. That's human beings, any relationship.
Right.
And you can't be afraid of asking the questions. Now, if you ask the questions without context, they could be totally misunderstood.
Correct.
Right? So
right.
You have to make sure that when you're going in with a question, whether you're questioning up or questioning down, right, depending on where you are in the organization, you put context around the question. Because this way somebody doesn't have you walk away and you give them the old eye roll. Like, holy crap, I can't believe you asked me that question. But if you put context around the question, the person understands why you asked the question.
Yeah. And if any conversation starts with what's in the best interest of the overarching organization, right? What are our goals? And here's where we're at, and here's what I need personally in order to facilitate that. Here's what's lacking. That sets the table for, okay, we're on the same team, we're here for the same goal, and here's the issue. Can we fix it together by doing this or by this way, or do you have a suggestion on how we can better improve
right?
our
And
work?
if I understand what you're saying, though, you're talking about already addressing a potential problem on the table. What I'm talking about is if contextually you stay out ahead of that,
Yes.
you're not addressing a problem, right?
Exactly.
So don't wait for something to become an issue. In other words, you can see it coming. You were typically hired because you know the playing field that you're on. And you got hired because it was perceived that you were a solid player in that area. You should be able to, with a high level of predictability, understand what's coming down the road. If you get thrown a curveball, totally go into the person that is your supervisor and say, look, I noticed this. I wasn't sure this was on the horizon. We didn't talk about this. I'm thinking A, B, or C, and I'm thinking A, B, or C because of D, E, or F. What are your thoughts?
Exactly.
Right? So
In
make sure you
context.
surround the potential challenge with intelligent observations. Again, so your supervisor doesn't have the eye roll when you walk out of the meeting.
Right. No, staying ahead of it is important. And I see no reason why you shouldn't have frequent communication with a new manager. especially in those first 90 days. If we're drilling down
As long
on the
as you
first
make sure
90.
it's not high maintenance, right? Because there's a fine line
Yes.
between communicating and perceived high maintenance.
Right.
Like, I thought I hired this person because they knew what they were doing, yet they're coming in the office every day asking me these questions. So,
Right.
I'm going to play both sides on that one.
Yeah, well, that's where it comes back, in my opinion, to the overarching goal of the organization. Because are you serving the corporate goals or the team goals, or are you serving yourself? Do you need to know because you need to know because you need that gratification, or do you need to know because it's going to impact the way that the end result
Well,
happens?
I'm glad you clarified that, because that's different, right? So I don't want our listeners to go in there and over-communicate. And if you're going in there because you need it for affirmation or an attaboy, attagirl hug, then that could be a challenge if it's
Yes.
too frequent.
Yeah.
If you're going in there and you have the question, and again, you put context around the question, it's clear from the supervisor that you're not asking for it because you need the attaboy or attagirl.
Yeah, no, and without question, that's got to be,
Cool.
both are important pieces.
I also believe that your first 30 to 60 days is you can't make a second first impression. So if you're starting a new role, I think you need to bring in the absolute best game that you can hammer away, meaning time in the office, working through lunch, being the last out the door. For those that think that you're setting a precedent that you can't sustain, don't think that way. Because the other side of that is the people are not impressed with you, right?
Right.
I'd rather you move from a position of backing off, overextension of what you're doing. But when you put in that 12 or 14 hour first 30, 60 days, the benefit to you is you come up to speed quicker.
Right, you get to know your players, your assets, you get to know everything. The individual who gets in the weeds on what their team is involved with, getting out from behind the desk, looking at the projects, seeing where they can help, you're going to make a lot more allies quicker than you will
But
any
be
other
careful
way.
with that again. What you have to do is getting down in the weeds can misrepresent as a micromanager. What you need to do is if you're coming in those first 60, 90 days, you need to have a sit down with your team, especially on a leadership role, and say, look, the first 60 days, I'm going to get down into the granularity of things. I don't want to be a micromanager. What I want you to help me with is the ability to help you. I want to understand all the challenges in your role, all the opportunities in your role, and at times it'll seem funny or odd that I'm interested in filling out your expense account. I'm not a micromanager, but the more I understand, the more I can be an asset to you. I'm going to back off that after 60 days, but I want you to understand why I'm getting down into your weeds. Very, very important to pre-frame that, not just go in there without people understanding that they're walking into potentially a micromanager role.
Yep. No, I agree. And there's so much to be said for, that first in, last out, what you learn on that. It's not just what you're showing, but it's also who is in early, and those early conversations. I know from some of even our recruiters, they have had more learning lessons from their peers in these early morning conversations or late evening conversations, problem solving about things that are happening it's just a better time to catch people. It's just generally a better time to catch people, and you
Socially
get on
and professionally.
Socially and professionally, and they tie in closely, especially those first few months. You're developing relationships on your strength and your expertise and credibility and respect. And you're also looking around and saying, are these people going to back me if I need them? This is your team. We've had individuals, and I know you have too, leaders come into organizations and completely blow it with their team because they were so interested in what their manager was thinking of them, and they cared less about what the team below was what really had what they were doing, what they were working on, and the team end up rising up and saying, this is not working, So it's critical that you develop a good working understanding all around, and you're going to get that from being involved.
that comes down to setting expectations in that first 90 days. I see too many people overpromise. A lot of times, organizations, especially in the sales marketing side, commercial facing, they'll ask for what's your 90-day plan. And I don't have any idea how you can potentially give a 90-day plan when you haven't even stepped on the field yet.
I
And
know,
so be really careful on that. My guidance on that is just really don't underpromise. However, pick fewer sort of landmarks that you plan on delivering. And I would say make your first 90 days information gathering in nature and not promises on deliverables. And a really good manager, leader will understand that, especially if you state it. Say, look, Mrs. Smith, I know I'm reporting into you. My first 90-day goal, obviously, is to impact X, Y, and Z. Having said that, I'm really thinking about this on a one-year plan. My first 90 days is going to be inventory and a reference point of where we are, what my team looks like, what my assets are around me. I might be able to accelerate that, and I'd be happy at any point in time to sit down with you to clarify some of my activities.
Yeah, no, I would be put off by someone who walked in and said, here's my plan after 8 to 12 hours of conversation in 2 months. If you have a working draft, if you have, here's some of my ideas and here's all the things that I'd want to get more information on, cool. Because that becomes a working document that you can share and you can actually go from. But a plan itself is presumptuous, to say the least.
And I would even be careful with that because you know what? And as we continue to grow as an organization, I'll give you an exact example. A lot of times when somebody comes in new, I'd like to do this, this, and this. When you do that to a leader or a CEO, the CEO most of the time has to say no to that because you don't have enough information, even though your aspirations and plans are appropriate. Either the CEO doesn't know how you're going to pull that off, or the CEO knows that those assets aren't available for you. So he or she, the CEO or the leader to that person you're declaring what you're going to deliver or you want, is going to have to say no, no, no. And that starts out a relationship in a really tricky situation.
Yeah, that sets a negative
So
table,
again,
right?
it's all about, I'm going to spend 90 days on really gathering info, right? Because of economics or resources or manpower or a buying life cycle of the product or what other headwinds you have no idea are going on before you even walk into the organization.
Yeah. No, those are very good points. And the 90-day period is, a lot of people will sigh and look back and say, oh, wow, it's already been 4 months, and then some people are really climbing through those first 3 months, just struggling. So I can appreciate how difficult it can be. Brand new marriage based on 8 hours of conversation at most.
And you talk about marriage. So we're talking about managing externally, professionally. On your personal side, you're probably going to stay in this gig for 3 to 5 years if we look at it statistically.
Right.
Okay. The first 90 days, this may seem odd. Go to sleep an hour and a half earlier. Cut out alcohol. Watch your diet.
Right.
Manage your lifestyle. Because if your machine isn't working at a 10, you're not going to be able to perform on the job as a 10. Sacrifice those 90 days on any external activities or any quote unquote abuse you might put on your body, i.e. through alcohol, food.
Right.
Massachusetts and Colorado, I can say this now, your pot smoking habits, whatever it is.
Right.
Just really manage that backwards because you want to be that high performing machine that they brought you in to be.
Yeah. And going back to the comment on marriage, make sure that the support you have in the household understands that this has got to be your number one priority.
Especially for the first 90 days.
The first 90 days, it's got to be your number one priority. This is what you have to jump in, own, and get up to speed on. And if you do a nice job, you'll get a sustainable clip that you can continue to carry on into month 4, 5, 6. But this is where you have the opportunity to make the one first impression.
Right. And again, be careful how you deliver that, right? I've learned this lesson the hard way because I wasn't smart enough. Don't come in and put a warning and say, hey, listen, for the first 90 days, don't expect me home. Or, I'm going to be this and I need this. Instead, start it off and be like, listen, I appreciate you supporting me on these next 90 days. I'm going to do everything I can in the household to be present. And I know I'm not going to be my 100% at home. I'm working on my game between 2 right now, right? Don't say I'm doing this for us. Don't say, it's going to pay off because I'm going to get you a bigger house or a better car. That is putting a wrong price tag on the relationship, right? It's about a partnership. And you want to be thankful for the partnership and the support, and that in advance, I'm just telling you right now, I'm going to appreciate that. It's important to deliver it that way.
Good tips.
And I can't believe I'm giving relationship
I can't
advice.
either.
I know.
Now that makes me. Hey, you've had a lot of experience.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. So again, a couple takeaways, 90 days. Bring best athlete, bring your best self. And I don't mean that, in the hug a tree way. It's like cut out anything that might, performance. Get more sleep, cut off anything extracurricular in regards to alcohol or anything else. And then exercise a little more. And then make sure you're doubling down on your hours. Get in at 7, leave at 7. You're going to double your intake on the info you get. And then therefore, you're just going to probably get 6-month experience in that 3-month experience.
Yep. And I would add, just take inventory and get to know and give as well of your team. Make sure that they know you're there as a team member, regardless of your title, regardless of your stature within the organization, because the more you have their support, the more you're going to be able to be successful.
Agreed. So 90 days in, that's your takeaway. For those that don't have 90 days in, tuck this away in your inventory when you switch your next job. Certainly refer to it. Another episode of On the Line. I'm Joe Mullings.
And I'm Holly Scott.
Thanks for listening in.